Hi, thank you so much for joining us in this webinar organized by the NUS Business School. I'm Swee Hoon and I'm from the Department of Marketing. Today, we're going to talk about the effects of COVID-19 on marketing. Today, it's going to be a tag team. We have, besides myself, Mr. Ronnie. He is our NUS business alum, a very successful one at that. A short introduction. Ronnie is the Managing Director of Marketing and of, you guys will like this, beer. Chang beer to be specific, from Fraser Neave. So Ronnie will join us. This is what we'll do. We will first start off with a discussion on the impact of COVID-19 on marketing during the lockdown period. Okay, we'll discuss about effects on consumers, effects on buying behavior, and so on. And after that, we'll move on to talk about the effects on marketing post-lockdown. Okay, so shall we begin? So let's start off with during the lockdown period, which is now, as is. So very obviously, online shopping has been accelerated in many industries, right? And when we talk about such acceleration, I mean, we knew all along that online shopping is on the rise, but this has really brought up, enhanced the importance of online shopping. But and so we see more products being sold online, but not just that. The kinds of consumers who shop online. I mean, we know millennials and Gen Zs, they are the ones who shop online, but this forced behavior to buy online has actually brought over some of the baby boomers to be more familiar with online purchases. So not only is online purchase gone up, the type of consumers who go online has changed as well, right? You're going to get a bigger, a more varied profile of such consumers. And indeed so, I think Italy has reported that its online purchases has gone up by as much as 80%. Products that have gone online includes yoga, exercise, right? And food, we know for sure. But why do we want to have a greater presence online? I mean, for me, I can think of if during this period of 2 months where people are stuck at home, obviously social media presence, social media activity has gone up. You as a marketer want to have a presence there because out of sight, out of mind. Okay, so you need to have that presence. So online is one way. The other also is if you're going to go, you want to be where your consumers are, right? And if consumers are on social media, you want to be there with them. Ronnie, what do you think? What are your thoughts about this lockdown period and marketing?
Well, I do agree. But before that, thank you, Swee Hoon. I used to call Prof. Ang, but I should call you Swee Hoon now. Thank you very much for having me here. It's my pleasure to be invited for this sharing. You're right, I worked for Fraser Neave and I graduated from NUS in '92. And I've been working for the consumer goods industry since then. I've always been focused in sales and marketing. And right now I'm responsible for the global marketing of beer brands like Chang Beer and Beer Saigon in my organization with a focus in Indochina. Now, to your point as how this pandemic has affected marketers, I'd just like to say, yes, I do agree that it's affected all businesses very much. It's been very disruptive. But if we were to take a step back, like you say, and look at it from a marketing perspective, we will realize that the situation has simply accelerated trends which we have seen all this time. Trends like health and wellness, convenience, e-commerce, digital and social media. We all know that these trends have been there in the past few years. And therefore, the current situation very much underlined the writing that's been on the wall for us all this while? Well, to be very specific to the topic at hand, let me begin by giving an overview of, at least my overview of how I see consumer response to COVID-19. Stage one is what I call the preemptive stage. Consumers begin to fortify their health and their wellness. The second stage is prioritization, and the priority shifts to buying of face masks, hand sanitizers, and other disinfectants. Now, stage three is what I would term as the pantry preparation. Essentials like rice, noodles, canned food, and even toilet paper, as we've seen, were being stocked up. And we move into the stage what we call the lockdown, or I personally would call it a pen-in stage. Routine activities that involve human interactions now become virtual. Learning goes remote, working goes via telecommuting, and social activities takes place via Zoom, like what we are having here. And then the final stage we will discuss today is the post-lockdown, where we see a new normal setting in with new embedded consumer behaviors and habits. Now, at every single stage, there will be changes to consumer behavior. And I think we need to understand how these changes affect our businesses. In particular, I'd like to talk about the stage where we are locked down, we are pent in, and I want to share some views on how this pandemic has affected three particular areas. One is the consumer needs and occasions. Two, shopping behavior. And three, media habits. Now let's talk about the consumer occasions first. For us at this stage, when we're all locked in and locked down at home, the on-premise consumption in bars, pubs, and restaurants has been most affected. There was a study done in April that saw on-premise businesses declining by about 63% in Thailand and as much as 82% in Vietnam. This is not surprising given all the movement control measures that are in place. Now, to mitigate this impact, outlet owners have had to quickly adapt their business. Moving the focus away from dine-ins, they have shifted their resources to home deliveries. They work with third-party delivery apps, even though this could mean a much lower margins for themselves. However, consumers are also starting to realize that such low margins are not going to make it easy for for the outlets. So what we start to see is that consumers are increasingly bypassing third-party delivery apps and ordering directly from the restaurants. But we all do know as well that this is not going to be easy, because creating and maintaining a dedicated online presence could be very expensive, especially for the smaller retailers. So one way to go around this is to write on aggregator platforms so that the digital lead would be more affordable. In fact, innovative startups like Hunger in US and Ordle in Singapore, they have benefited from this movement towards direct ordering. These startups offer all-in-one ordering systems that make it easier and more cost-effective for outlets to manage their e-commerce businesses. Since the start of the pandemic, a lot of restaurant partners have signed up, and as a result, Hunger and Ordle, they have seen multiple fold increases in their revenue. Now, for us as beverage brand owners, we too are keeping a close tab on what's happening. So in some of our markets where we can, we try to offer special trade offers so that our beers are bundled with food and takeaway and deliveries. We also try to help by promoting these bundled deals on our social media platforms and amongst our sizable database of followers, with the intent to drive traffic and footfall to these outlets. However, the truth is this: the impact on the on-premise channel will be very significant, and the decline can only be mitigated so much. So I believe that some shuttering in this channel will be inevitable. On the other hand, we have seen some slight picked up in home consumption, which leads me to a second point about shopping behavior. Since the pandemic began, we have seen an acceleration of e-commerce activities and online shopping. One multi-country report informed that 39% of respondents claim that they do a lot more online shopping compared to pre-COVID days. In fact, in the US, it is reported that 32% of respondents are now making e-commerce purchases for the very first time. The implication for us is very obvious, right? We need to treat e-commerce channels as seriously as we have treated the brick and mortar stores. We must ensure omni-channel product availability and also ensure that our value chain is highly competitive. And only then can we gain sufficient share of virtual real estate on e-commerce sites. The fact of the matter is this: pandemic or no pandemic, the trend towards online shopping has been growing exponentially. And it is imperative that business capitalize on this. I'd like to cite the example of Lenovo in China. In the days leading up to the lockdown, in anticipating a shift to home-based working and learning, Lenovo projected a surge in the last-minute online purchase of laptops. So what they did was they invested heavily in search engine optimization, or SEO, on the popular JD platform to guide shoppers to their promotion page. As a result, new user recruitment increased by 47%. So instead of a negative impact, this crisis opened up tactical opportunities for Lenovo. And this only happened not because they had randomly cast their nets everywhere, but they had cast their nets at where the schools of fish were swimming to, and therefore were able to reap the returns. Moving on from e-commerce, which we have been talking about and is the flavor of the month, or for the decade, I must say, what was surprising for me was the resilience of the traditional trade, which are the mom and pop stores. You know, I work in the Indochina region, and I've seen in Myanmar and in Thailand. What we have observed is that the footfall to these stores, they have not suffered very drastic drops. Perhaps this is due to the proximity or the convenience, or perhaps they offer less exposure to crowds as compared to large format supermarkets. Or maybe it's because many of them have quickly adapted. For example, I see product stocks, cash registers being reallocated to the storefront. Why? To facilitate this grab and go shopping behavior. So this ability to adapt and adjust means that the traditional trade is here to stay for a long time, because they are very nimble and they're very quick. They will continue to be an important purchase channel for us. So as brand owners, it is critical that we do not neglect this channel, and we have to ensure product availability, freshness, and visibility. Now, of course, when we talk about this pandemic, we always talk about the supermarkets, which is, of course, a channel of interest for all of us. And many reports have informed us that the frequency of visits to the supermarkets have dropped compared to pre-COVID days. Correspondingly, however, the size of the shopping basket has also increased, some to 3 times the normal size. And within the basket of goods, what we have noticed is that there are some evidence of down trading. And this is most likely due to a looming economic downturn and the impact on consumer confidence. Now, all these developments have had implications on our marketing approach. With the change in shopping frequency and basket size, we had to relook our space management and merchandising strategy. Besides looking at space management, we also had to review our entire product SKU mix, because we had to look at it from a new pair of lenses. For example, we shifted our focus to larger pack formats. This not only addresses the change in shopping behavior, it also addresses the consumer's concerns for better value per unit. And we look at it from we are projecting a tightening of belts as well. So we also reviewed our portfolio to ensure we have the right products at the right price positioning. After all, there will be segments of consumers who may be down trading as they search for more value alternatives. For example, when we look at Thailand, it was reported that 50% of respondents are now a lot more careful with their spending and expecting a lot more value for money. So moving on, I'll come to the third point, which is about media habits, which is a key part of our marketing mix. The pandemic has affected our media habits. And I think as marketers, we have to be mindful of these changes because it affects costly media planning and buying. The preamble to all this is, we all know that marketing budget will be cut. But at the same time, we need to be aware that during crises like this, consumers tend to prefer established and familiar brands that they trust. So it's imperative that we continually keep our brand presence in the minds and within the purchase content of our consumers. We therefore need to pay attention to the efficiencies of spend and to tweak our media spend accordingly. To this end, what we have learned is this: free-to-air TV has enjoyed some short-term recovery during this time because people are tuning in for news coverage of the evolving situation. In a recent poll in Spain, time spent watching TV over a regular weekend has increased from 3 hours to 5 hours. And the situation is also boosting podcasts by more than 10%. This channel presents a very natural way to engage with consumers. And I go back to Thailand report again, and it informed us that 63% of marketeers over there plan to increase spend on podcasts over the next 12 months. Finally, it's about digital and social media. The time spent on this medium have surged because people are looking for ways to stay up to date, to stay connected, and also to stay entertained. 74% of US respondents have claimed that they are spending more time on video streaming. Clearly, I think what we see is all these indications are telling us we need to stay present above the line. We need to remain within the radar of our consumers. Before I pass over to Swee Hoon, I also want to talk about one thing, which is the content that we put into Medium. Because the creative works that we have come up with, they need to be topical. They need to be sensitive to the issues at hand.
Yeah.
I know of some companies, they've already scrapped some new creative executions that depict certain lifestyles, especially those pertaining to travel or those pertaining to physical gatherings. Instead, many have looked to the emotions of the current climate to lend powerful social message. For example, in a recent TV commercial by BMW, they shot an aerial shot of a winding road. And the copy goes, the only curve that matters is the one that we need to flatten. Stay safe. It's so simple, so relevant, so resonating. Now, there are other creative executions that connect and empathize, that showcase positive values or championing togetherness. Coca-Cola, for example, they recently shot a 2-minute clip on social media, and that was addressed to the human race, looking at the current negative reality, but through a very positive lens. That clip became viral. One of the lines in the video went like this: "For the distance we endure, we rediscover love and devotion." Another line went like this: "For every virus, there is a vaccine in positivity." So when you layer these powerful words with a moving soundtrack, it is no wonder that the video clip went viral, because it connected very deeply. After all, during these troubled times, people are looking for hope. They are looking for encouragement. For my organization, we also understand the sense of isolation, the sense of boredom, of being stuck at home. People need entertainment. They need to know that life is still going on. They need that assurance that they are not the only ones feeling trapped. So in some of markets, we have moved our activities online. For example, we started live streaming music concerts with the artists performing from their homes. The artists are not somebody up there that's so inaccessible. They are actually human beings who are also stuck at home, but they play their music to entertain us in our homes. So that was quite a good way of connecting with people. A simpler execution of that is we started airing different episodes of things to do at home. Example, giving out, highlighting simple recipes for beer mixers, which can be done at home. I also like to highlight 100 Plus. As 100 Plus is an isotonic drink that's associated with fitness, they decided to bring the gym workouts home during this lockdown. Together with professional fitness instructors, they've rolled out daily live streams of yoga, fitness sessions, so that their fans can keep fit while stuck at home. You see, marketing activities and consumer engagement activities should not stop during this pandemic. Instead, what we should focus on is to adapt our marketing strategies, to address the changes in consumer behavior, to review the efficiencies of our current media mix, to reallocate our resources accordingly, and then tweak our creative content as necessary to connect and to empathize. Okay, I should stop here because I think I've exceeded my time limit. Let me pause at this point and hand over to Professor Ang. Swee Hoon.
Hey, thanks, Ronnie. I am so proud of you. You have outdone, all of that, and that's an NUS alum. Excellent.
You're too
I
kind.
would say also another example for businesses, whether you're big or small, you really want your presence to be there. Okay, and there are very efficient ways to do so. Technology has opened up all these opportunities. Okay, don't think it's just only for the MNCs. All right. There's a question here about how to reduce delivery cost, especially for small value items. And I think one way you can do that is to have at least two types of delivery costs. If you want it now and then, or by the next day after you order, you pay the full price, right? If you want to cut down on costs because you ordered small items, then as the merchant, you use the aggregator mode, right? You can't get it immediately. You get it, a week later when you've got more orders of those same items to be delivered within your vicinity so that you can share the costs. So if you want it then fast, you pay the price. If you want to pay a lower delivery cost, you plan ahead. So essentially, you are educating consumers to plan ahead for purchases, right? So that they can reduce costs. I want to move on now to how about behavior post-lockdown. For me, I believe very much whether it's lockdown or post-lockdown, you really need to understand the customer journey. The journey that consumers go through and what are the pain points given the pandemic that they are looking out for, they are more concerned with. And so you as a merchant look out for all these pain points and address those pain points. So for instance, Ronnie had alluded to anxiety, right? Consumer anxiety during this time, either anxious from getting the virus or anxious about economic loss from pay cuts or unemployment. Then understand these pain points so that before you open your store, okay, post-lockdown, before you open your store, go and inform your consumers what steps you are taking to ensure their safety. So that consumers, number one, are more willing with confidence to come to your store. And when they are in your store, they are more comfortable looking around. I would also say that during this period, when we are staying at home, consumers have become smarter. They are online shopping, they're reading more about different products and so on because, they are generally freer, which means therefore, post-lockdown, if they were to come to your store physically, more or less, they've already done the information search about your brand. In their minds, they're more or less sure they want to buy your brand already. It's not like pre-pandemic days when people are just window shopping, looking around and so on, then you get a lot of noise. But now I think when consumers go into your shop, they've done their work. So the profile is somewhat different already. These are better educated consumers. And there's a question here also, not all businesses are able to adapt, and what can the government do to help these SMEs to digitize? Ronnie, do you have any thoughts about that? I think the government has several schemes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the government have a lot of schemes to help, but more importantly, you should look towards yourself as to what you can do. A lot of people find the word digitization a very scary word, that it's going to be very costly. I was just having this conversation with my colleagues in the US and the UK, and they obviously, in such a big market like theirs, they are very small in presence, but they do need to be present in the digital world as well. So instead of going to a professional agency to do everything, the social media actually provides a very cost-efficient platform. In fact, many of these platforms offer existing tools that you can use as long as you learn them. One person can actually take some photos or videos using nowadays very high-tech smartphones. And as long as you have the right idea, put that into pictures, put that into captions, and then you can post it. You will post it on your social media page, hashtag as many relevant hashtags as possible. This will widen your reach. And from there, from paid media, it becomes earned media. And that's how you go into your reach. Another way is, a low-cost way is to go right on aggregator platforms. They have done the work for you. You do not have to start everything from scratch. Right on what they have done, pay a fraction of the cost as compared to if you were to do everything yourself. So yes, the government is one form of, is an area where you can seek help, but more importantly, look around, look at what you can do for yourselves. I think that's very important. And as an entrepreneur, I'm sure your eyes will always be on the lookout for those opportunities.
Yeah, I also want to stress about this e-commerce. Even though we are lifting the circuit breaker on 2nd of June, most businesses are still closed. And I think the more consumers stay at home and forced to do online shopping, the habits will change. They become more comfortable with online shopping, with e-commerce. So although there is a small segment of consumers who are raring to go to do physical shopping, they call it revenge shopping, but most of us will have no choice, become more comfortable with online shopping, which means therefore it's very sticky. So a question here was asked, how should we then change our product portfolio? How to market during such strange times? Do we give discounts and so on? Well, you will need to have one suggestion would be this, to have some of your products that you have in your physical stores that you only sell in your physical stores. So new products that you might launch, you launch them first in your physical store, not online. And that sort of forces people to say, you want to get it, you have to come to my store to buy. Okay, and later on, when you have that online, after you've sold it offline, you want it online, and it could be at a higher price online, and that's a way to force people to come into your store if you want to. In terms of product portfolio, again, consumer pain points, right? At this point in time, what are they looking for? A question here was posted, how about high-end fashion brands? I mean, that is so far off their minds, okay, unless you're not affected by the pandemic. So think of, if you're in the fashion line, for instance, right? Think about face masks that go along with the dress, right? Right now we have, bundled sales, handbags with shoes that go matchy-matchies, so face masks with clothes and so on. And product portfolio that's meaningful to consumers, something that's compelling, giving them a reason to buy, because truly now there's no reason for them to buy any of these, non-necessities, right? Okay.
May I add something to the portfolio? I think the critical word there is portfolio. I think what we marketers are guilty of more often than not is to come up with a lot of brands and products to populate that portfolio. But this pandemic is forcing us to really focus on what are the roles of each brand in the portfolio. Mm-hmm. I mean, if there are some that are addressing to focus on the people who are looking for luxury, people who are looking for recognition, and there are others that are just purely looking for value and function. So if we have different products targeted at different groups of people, we can always play around with the portfolio. It gives us a very good time to actually rationalize our portfolio. So I think there's a lot of considerations here. There's a play of margin mix as well when we talk about portfolio. So different businesses will have different portfolios, different margin mix. Play along, adapt your portfolio according to the times right now. Consumer behaviors are changing, adapt accordingly.
Ronnie, there's a question here for you about downgrading in Thailand. And would your business be looking at price reduction? And will that start a price war?
I think this again relates to the whole point of portfolio. We are not a single brand or product company. We are a portfolio company. So there are certain products in our portfolio that is targeted especially for people who are down trading. But do not forget, there will still be segments of people who prefer that, hey, since I'm going to spend, I'm going to pamper myself at home. I just want to look good because times are so down and negative. Let me be positive and dress up in my best dress, for example, have the best drink. There will always be different segments of different needs. As long as you have a portfolio, I think we need to play around with that. It doesn't mean that you need to go down the route of discounting. It doesn't mean to say that you start a price war. Every brand has its role. Play to the role of the brand.
And I must say this, during a pandemic, this is the time, the opportunity for your brand to leapfrog your competitors, because everyone else is cutting down, cutting down, cutting down. When times are good, okay, when there's an economic boom, everyone is spending. And to beat your competitor, you have to, spend heftily too, right? To outbid them. So this is a time when everyone is cutting down. You have the opportunity to zoom ahead of them, literally, right? Zoom, because everyone is cutting down. And so if you spend smartly, right, and have your presence there, show to consumers your value add and relevance to them, this is a great way, okay, to leapfrog. There's another question here about bottlenecks, IT and logistics, delivery departments, everyone's going shopping online to buy groceries, and then we have difficulty checking out. I, for one, I'm one of those who experience that, because of delivery bottlenecks. This is therefore a time where our supermarkets really have to pull up their socks and do better. And one good thing arising from this pandemic, I know this pandemic has done a lot of harm, but one good thing is it has forced people to look at themselves, okay, and say how they can improve. And so the supermarkets really have to improve on their online distribution. And it's an opportunity then for logistic players, right, to pick up on this bottleneck and do well here. What do you think, Ronnie?
Yes, we need to see, again, I go back to the example of Lenovo. Instead of looking at everything from a doom and gloom perspective, there are opportunities, right? And then the Chinese word of crisis says that in every crisis there's an opportunity. It just depends on how sensitive we are to consumer behavior and how creative we can be to touch on those evolving and developing consumer behavior. So I think it forces us to work harder and to really be serious about what needs to be done and what difficult decisions we have to make. But
Ronnie, here's another question right down your alley. What's the most relevant marketing strategy and initiatives for the F&B industry for the upcoming new normal?
Well, maybe this is a good question to lead to the next phase of the pandemic, which is the post-lockdown. So perhaps I can touch a bit on that, because I think in sharing that we could answer that question as well. Is that okay, Swee Hoon?
Yeah, sure.
So I think one of the questions in everybody's mind is, what will be the new norm? And when will we reach this state of equilibrium? I think that, to be honest, there's a famous saying from the ex-CEO, chief executive of Hong Kong, right? Donald Tsang. He said, I've stopped looking into the crystal ball because I end up with glass on my hands. So having put everything into context, I would just say that there are actually too many variables at play, and it's too early to project accurately. things will only become clearer when more markets open up. However, what is clear is that travel will continue to be very hard hit. Cash-rich tech companies are taking the opportunities to invest in their brand. FMCG companies like mine are holding up better, in fact, better than many and expected. And of course, the pharma industry, they are relatively unaffected. In fact, they're riding the wave. Normalization will also take place at a different pace across different cities and across different countries. When I look at the US, I see New York and New Jersey, they're still very much in lockdowns. Whereas in the southern states of South Carolina, some semblance of life before COVID has returned. An American friend of mine just told me recently that people are starting to dine out and enjoy a drink at al fresco bars. So in Vietnam, we have also noticed that restrictions have been lifted too. As a result, people have started to resume life outside of home. And we have received positive reports of some outlets recovering quickly, some up to 70% of their pre-lockdown business. So I know it's only been 2 weeks, and it's too early to conclude whether this will be the new norm. We pray and we really hope that this will continue because humans are communal. We live as a social, we are social beings and we need to have people around us. But if a second wave hits, infections rise, then this new normal may take longer to emerge. So I think we have to be mindful of that. But to give us more clues as to what will happen in the new norm, I look to some surveys in the US, and the US respondents are telling me 39% say they will increase their online purchasing. 37% said they will reduce their face-to-face contact with others. I think those two statistics give clues to how we should adapt our marketing strategy, whether you're in the F&B industry or whether you're in consumer industry or any other industry. Because some of these changes in consumer behavior that I've spoken about, they will likely be embedded permanently. In particular, I think, like I said, people are communal. They yearn to go out and socialize. But this social distancing mindset will continue to prevail for some time to come. Yeah? If not by themselves, also by the restaurant owners or the outlet owners who have put up barriers to minimize contact. And unfortunately, going forward, from the way things are emerging and developing at this moment, I think the on-premise business, the F&B business, will continue to be impacted, at least in the next few months. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. So what I am positive about, however, is the shift towards online shopping. In fact, I see an acceleration in e-commerce, and it's going faster and faster. People have moved past their early inertia. They're starting to embrace e-commerce, and that's very important, a development that all of us must take note. If we have been hesitant, we no longer should be. Yeah, this will add further pressure on brick and mortar experience, stores. They have less frequent visits. People are concerned about going anymore. They now really have to innovate the retail experience, the physical retail experience. I like the example of Nike, because Nike not only has a fantastic online presence, they have also revamped their physical stores. They have introduced fitness professionals to provide advice on how to improve your training regimes. They have installed equipment to help you with customization to what you need. So in other words, they have gone omni-channel. It's not physical and e-commerce. They have actually combined as different channels within their experience to offer what they have to offer, and they've customized, which is a big trend, the entire retail experience. So for us, I think the lessons we have to take out from here is, whatever we do, whatever industry we are in, ensure omni-channel product availability. Practice strategic portfolio management. Have the right brand available in the right place, at the right format, at the right price. And things like brand familiarity and consumer affinity, things that we preach about all the time, this will become even more important going forward, because people become very sensitive about where the goods come from, goods that they are familiar with. So we have to be nimble. We have to be quick. We have to adapt our marketing strategy all the time. The worst thing for us to do is to stop marketing, is to delay our marketing for a prolonged period of time. Because we have seen some analysis that say that if you go completely dark for a prolonged period of time, you potentially could lose up to 13% of your existing business. 13% is very hard to recover from. So my advice is listen to the consumer, what they are telling you, whether it's explicitly or implicitly. We need to act, we need to optimize, we need to adapt, we need to innovate. But whatever we do, just do not sit still. Don't wait for a new norm to happen. Yeah. This is the new norm. Yeah, the uncertainty, the chaos is the new norm. And we have to look at it and reorientate and shape the situation. We have to be thankful that we have the opportunity to shape the situation as it develops. That's how I am approaching this whole pandemic. With that, over to you, Swee Hoon.
Well, there is a saying, and this will date me. There is a very famous ice hockey player by the name Wayne Gretzky. So he was the #1 player of his time. And I think the best, he's in the Hall of Fame. And he used to say, okay, why he's such a great, skillful player? Because he doesn't go to where the puck is, the ice hockey ball is, but he goes to where it would be. So he's anticipating. So we need to be agile, like what Ronnie says, right? To be agile and adaptable to whatever is this new norm that's going to be. And Ronnie mentioned about Nike and its omni-channel. Well, currently, Nike's tagline is play inside, play for the world. To tell you, right? It's an athletic brand, but don't go outside and play. Stay indoors because of the sheltering, right? Play inside and play for the world. So this is where a brand speaks of sensitivity to the consumer, all right? Still stays on top of consumers' mind, but is empathetic to the situation that there is. And if consumers can relate to, Nike and say, yeah, and Nike understands me, even though it is an outdoor sport brand, but it's encouraging us to stay at home. There are also some brands that do, or rather product categories that do better, so be sensitive to that. Like, for instance, we know cosmetics have come down, although for Sephora, their online purchase sales have gone up by 30%, but it doesn't compensate for the loss of sales from the brick and mortar stores. So yeah, cosmetics have gone down, but we know hair care and skin care has been resilient. Because whether you stay indoors, outdoors, you still have to maintain your hair in the skincare, but cosmetics have come down. So we know that different products would respond differently. Here's a question from one of our alums, Kevin Yeo, and he says he runs a dog training and pet grooming business. So does the pandemic present more opportunities for schools like ours to reduce less on the local markets and reach the international audience through online distance learning? Absolutely, right? The world is now your oyster, You can go beyond just Singapore, definitely. Another question here. Any best practice to make sure brand identities stay relevant to core customers during this crisis? Best practice to ensure brand identities stay relevant. I think the underlying key is always understand your customers. What's relevant to them, what's meaningful to them, but also know what your brand can or cannot do, right? You don't want to overpromise, It still goes back to the basics. What your brand can or cannot do, what is relevant, meaningful to your consumers, and also look at your competitors, right? Can you do better than your competitors? If you can't, then is there any angle that you think you can do better, or create one that your competitors never thought of, but it's something that your target market wants? Or if not, a different target market a different group of customers who will find what you offer now useful to them. Here's another question. What do you think will happen to the sachet economy that served to the poorer population of several Asian countries? I think here's an opportunity for them, right? Don't you think so, Ronnie? Those sachet economies where they sell things in smaller volume, right? And that relates to the earlier question about how do you reduce costs? And I think one way is to same product, but more affordable by way of smaller volume. So affordability here, right? In smaller volume that people can buy. So sachet, I think would become popular, right? Okay. So I think we'll wrap up now. Any last words from you, Ronnie?
No, I don't really have much last words. I hope there's no last words because this is a continuing conversation that we are having. Everybody's still learning about how to deal with this pandemic. But like I say just now, I think it's very important. I think we need to be courageous and we need to be positive. This is but a blip if we take a longer perspective. Yes, it's a very difficult and challenging blip in the whole runway, but we just need to focus on where we want to go and we need to adapt. You know, sticking to the new way to the old ways is a sure death. And also not to act until we get more information is also a sure death. I think we need to just continue to adapt and iterate, because by iterating ourselves, we are actually shaping the whole situation as we go along. So act, optimize, adapt, innovate. Don't sit still. That's my final word.
Great, great. I hope you guys have enjoyed this session. We have another session coming up, and that's on Wednesday, same time at 1 p.m. And this will be, we will also have a tag team for the next session. James Pang, who is a co-director at the NUS Business School from the Analytics and Operations Department, as well as Mr. Scott Russell. He's the president of SAP Asia Pacific Japan. So that would be great to, if you can come and join us during that time. Thank you so much for joining us. And this will not be forever, right? The pandemic will not be forever. We will come out strong. Just be resilient, right? And be persistent. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.